Welcome and welcome back, people. Okay, so this is Crazy Dating Stories Part 2. Um, I'm doing the recordings a little late in the day today, so you're going to get your Wednesday recording, but it's going to be later in the evening. But I'm still trying to stick to the schedule, even though life is just kind of doing its thing. Um, so let's hop right into it. Okay, so editing Kelly here. I had to cut out a second video from this, second clip from this video because it came up with copyright issues. But I'm just going to describe the video because I'm going to leave my commentary in it. It's been circulating a lot, so I'm sure you've seen it. It's two people, they're sitting at a restaurant table, and the guy is talking over the woman the entire time, telling her what she can and cannot order, telling her that he knows what women want and won't let her order for herself, and then denies ordering her wine because he says he doesn't want to add more calories to her. And you can see her in the mirror later in the clip, and she's like perfectly fine. Like, not that that gives an excuse for him to say something like that, but so I'm just putting this clip in real quick so that we can still leave the commentary so you don't end up with an 8-minute video. The way that I would just absolutely just walk away at the first moment when she told him what she wanted to get, and then he was like, "Oh, I'll order for you. I know what you want." Yeah, you know what I want because I just told you what I want. My goodness. And then just keeps talking over her, really doesn't let her speak for herself, keeps saying, "Oh, I know what women want. I know what women want." Sir, you obviously don't, because you're not even letting this woman speak. So if you don't let women speak around you, how can you know what women want? Or is it what you assume that women want because of some of the content that you consume that tells you how to think about the women? I'm sorry, but this guy just sounds like I would never, like, I would just get up at that moment and just walk out. I wouldn't even explain to him why he's wrong because it's not going to sink in. He's just not even going to listen. He's going to walk away from that date thinking that, "Oh, I did the best job. You know, I'm a high value guy." That's exactly what he sounds like. Oh my goodness. Next story.
This is why I deleted my Tinder and why every single girl watching this needs to delete her Tinder too. This happened a few years ago, and I honestly consider myself so incredibly lucky to be alive after experiencing this. I was living in New York City at the time, and I matched with a guy. For the entire time we were talking, he was really aggressively trying to get me to go out with him. And eventually I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna let this guy take me out on a date. Maybe I'm just being judgmental. Maybe he's not being desperate. Maybe he's just putting in an effort. So the day of the date rolls around, and he tells me that he wants to take me out to a restaurant that is a bit of a hidden gem and is a little bit outside of the city in an area of Westchester called Yonkers. And even though he offered to drive me, I was like, no, it's all good. I actually had my own car in New York City, so I agreed to meet up with him. Now, I feel like an absolute idiot because I didn't even Google this place before I went. So on the night of the date, I'm driving to this place. I put it into my GPS, and it's really weird because as soon as I see it in the GPS, it says that the place is closed. So I text my date and I'm like, "Hey, I just put this place into the GPS and it is telling me that it is actually closed." To which he replies, "Oh no, don't worry. They're really bad at updating their hours." This is the part where I should have just been like, "Oh hell no," and I should have canceled the date, but somehow I decided it would be a good idea to get in my car and drive 40 minutes to Yonkers for a date with a guy. So after 40 minutes of driving in traffic, I arrive at this place in Yonkers. I pull up to the building and I quickly realize that there is nobody in the parking lot and that indeed this business is really closed. Not to mention, my car is the only car in the parking lot. So I start to panic, and as I look behind me to put my car in reverse, I notice another car pull up. This car pulls up right beside me. I don't even look at the person sitting in the car. I just simply back up out of that parking lot as fast as I can, and I get the heck out of there. The entire way home, I am just looking in my rear view mirror to see if there's anyone behind me, and thankfully there was not. And the craziest part part of all of this is when I got home, I went back onto that dating app and I could see that the profile had unmatched with me. I never got a chance to screenshot that profile. I never learned the guy's last name, but I can't tell you guys how many times I've heard this happening to girls on dating apps. It's not worth it. Just delete it for your own safety. And if you are going to be on dating apps, please always make sure to get the person's last name and to meet in a place that you are familiar with.
Oh my goodness, this must have been absolutely terrifying for her. So first of all, I know I always harp on it, drive your own car. This is a very good example of why you should drive your own car. Never get in the car with somebody that you don't really know them like that, especially if you met them off Tinder, because there are a lot of creeps on Tinder. Yeah, did I meet the guy that I've been with for the last 6 years off of Tinder? Yes, but that was a hidden gem in a sea of just complete effery. Just the stuff that I went through on that app alone, not to mention the other ones that I was on at the time, but still, just Google the place, meet where you're somewhere familiar, meet where there's going to be a lot of people around. Always just make sure that it's going to be in a very public place. This is absolutely terrifying to think of. Oh my goodness. Remember, I said I laugh when I'm nervous, and I am absolutely nervous for this girl. I hope she's doing well now. Let's get into the next story.
Get ready with me as I tell you about one of the worst dates I've ever been on, where I had to literally run out halfway through. Okay, so about a year ago, I started talking to this guy on Instagram. And looking back, this man had so many red flags. But he was 6'3", so shit was looking a little green to me. And one of his big red flags was that he had a very weird relationship with his mom. And I don't mean like, oh, they were just really close. I mean like Sigmund Freud was in his grave, like, told you bitches. He would somehow find a way to bring his mom up in every conversation that we had. Say I was like, oh yeah, I love The Walking Dead. He would be like, my mom loves The Walking Dead too. He would go on and on about how he wants to find a girlfriend that's exactly like his mom because his mom has the perfect personality and he can't see himself being with anyone who doesn't act like her. He was also 26 and did not live at home, but for some reason still had to ask his mom permission anytime he did anything social. Like before we went on our first date, he was like, yeah, I'm talking this over with my mom. I'll let you know what she says. Their relationship was odd, to say the least. Anyway, so the day of our date rolls around and I text him early in the day and I'm like, hey, just checking in to make sure we're still on for tonight. He responds and he's like, yep, 7 o'clock still works for me. I'm super excited. Can't wait to see you. So like 15 minutes before our date's supposed to start, I text him and I'm like, hey, just letting you know, I just called my Uber. I'll be there in 15. To which he responds, fuck. Like the only thing his message says is fuck. And I'm like, what? What's the problem? He sends another message and is like, sorry, I got held up at my friend's house. I should be over there shortly. And normally I would have just said, okay, and then not gone on the date. But my hair and makeup were already done and I was in my dumb bitch era. So I was like, oh, okay, no problem. Just let me know when you're leaving. And after 30 minutes of waiting, he finally texts me to let me know he's leaving. So then we both head to the restaurant and he gets there a little bit before me. So he sends me a text and he's like, hey, I'm waiting at the table for you. And when I walk in and see him sitting at the table, I am floored. Took away my 10-minute feature, so don't hate me, but go see part 2. This is part 2 of my one of the worst dates ever story time, so if you haven't seen part 1, go watch that. Temple needs to fuck off. Okay, so when I walk into the restaurant and see him, I am floored. Also forgot to give him a name, so let's call him Jacob. I'm so shocked when I see him because he looks nothing like his Instagram pictures, and I mean nothing like them. So he sees me and does the awkward like waving me down, and I come over to the table. I sit down at the table and off the bat, it's just automatically awkward. And like, I'm the kind of person, I can literally like conversate with a brick wall. Like I can talk to whoever And like, I'm actually pretty good about that, like talking to people I don't know. And I was just like asking him questions, and it was just really awkward because he wasn't like trying to talk. Like anytime I asked him a question, he would like deflect and like not answer it. And so off the bat, the vibes were just really fucking awkward. And so then somehow the topic of Sweet Life of Zach and Cody gets brought up. And that was like my all-time favorite show growing up. So of course I'm like so into the conversation. I'm like loving talking about it. Side note, he called Mr. Mosby Mr. Moland. Like, first and foremost, you're gonna put some respect on Mr. Mosby's name. He referred to Maddie as the girl at the counter. Like, what? Anyways, and so I made a comment and I was like, I love that show. Like, I can't believe that was like 15 years ago. I said like 15 years ago, not it was for sure 15 years ago. I just did the calculations on my calculator. Here it is. Look at it. I was like, it was like 15 years ago, just casually in conversation. This man cuts me off and goes, it was not 15 years ago, and gets out his phone and Googles how long ago the premiere of Sweet Life of Zach and Cody was. And I'm just like, what? I didn't even care. Like, why are you put your phone down? Men will literally take what their friends say at face value, like no questions asked. Their friend could be like, yeah, did you guys figure out that dinosaurs never existed? And they'd be like, oh yeah, cool, like I didn't know that. But anytime a woman says anything, like it doesn't even matter what's it about, they turn into Nancy fucking Drew. Like, put your magnifying glass down. We were literally talking about Sweet Life of Zach and Cody. Like, it was never that serious. Please calm down. So I'm just like silently rolling my eyes like, what the fuck? And the rest of the conversation is just weird and awkward. Like, it feels like I'm making awkward small talk with someone in the dentist office or something. Like, just the vibes were not it. So then the waiter brings our food out. And he had ordered a burger and he got it medium. Like, I remember I physically heard him say medium to the waiter. And so the waiter brings out our food and Jacob opens his burger and is like, this is not what I wanted. Like, I ordered it well done. Like, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. Just going on and on, berating the waiter about how this is not what he wanted. Go see part 3. And the poor waiter is like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry. We'll get this replaced for you. And I chime in to the waiter and I'm like, no worries at all. Like, you're totally fine. Like, you know, we'll get this fixed. Like, it's not a big deal, I promise. Jacob looks me dead in the eyes and goes, actually, it is a big deal, so I'm gonna need you to shut up. I said, I'm sorry, what? And then he turns to the waiter and says, you better get this fixed now before I start getting angry. You haven't seen anything yet. And I'm just still sitting there like, oh, is this actually playing out in real life right now? And I feel like I used to do this all the time, even when a date was going poorly. And like, even when I knew I was never going to see this person again, I would still like sit through the date because I'm like, oh, I don't want to be impolite, yada, yada. And now I'm like getting to the point where it's like, if it's like that bad, like if it's something like that, like I will absolutely get up and leave. Like, there's no point in me like sitting there and entertaining it when, you know, I'm never going to see this person again. And after he spoke like that to the waiter, I was like, it's confirmed. I'm never seeing this person again. So like, there's literally nothing to lose. So I asked the waiter for my check for my food and he goes to get it. And we're literally just like sitting at the table. It is so fucking awkward. I like pull out my phone and I'm just like fucking around on Instagram. And he's like, meanwhile, like texting up this storm, probably talking to his fucking mom. But we're just like both on our phones and it's so awkward. The waiter like brings me out my check. Luckily I had cash. So I just give him the cash for my meal and the tip. And then I'm like, have a nice day. I say nothing to Jacob that is sitting at the table, still texting away, and I literally get up and leave. And once I get home, I block him off everything. I block his number, I block his Instagram, and I have not heard from him to this day. So, Jakey, if you're watching this, you need lots of psychological help. I recommend a professional very, very soon. So.
Oh my goodness, where do I even begin with this guy? First of all, the mommy issues. I went out with a guy that had some mommy issues. Now, it wasn't to the point where he was like so enamored with his mom, but he literally would not do anything, not a single thing, to stand up to his mom, and she was absolutely insane. I'm talking about texting me, threatening to come up to my job to fight me. Insane. And if you're hearing this and you know who you are and you see my videos, I still hate you, both of you. So, and then next with the way that he was treating the waiter, that's another thing that's just like, I cannot stand that. Like, why? You don't have to be disrespectful. Like, if a waiter gets something wrong, even though he did say medium when he meant well done, like, okay, there was a miscommunication. I'm so sorry. Let's, can I just get another one? It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. Pull your panties out of a knot and just move on with your day and be an adult. And then also the whole, like, I know that the correcting her on the, and actually Googling the exact date, the release date of The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, when she said, oh, it was like 15 years ago, that I actually consider to be one of the worst behaviors, because it's something so subtle but so undermining, like to the point where it's just like when you have to argue semantics with someone about whether or not, like, you said like 15 years ago, or you said exactly 15 years ago, and you have to keep constantly, like, making those kinds of arguments with someone. It is absolutely exhausting, because this person is intentionally, either intentionally or unintentionally, just not understanding what you're saying, or understanding subtleties and subtext. Like, there's a difference between 15 years ago and like 15 years ago, but he's treating them as exactly the same just because you said the phrase 15 years ago. He likely wasn't even fully listening to her to begin with, and that's probably why there was the miscommunication with that, or with him being like, kind of effed up with that. But like, just this, I'm so glad that she just left. And that's another thing we're gonna, definitely give her kudos points for, because we need to start normalizing just leaving. Show up in your own car and leave when things start going south. Don't wait for them to start waving the 15th red flag. Just go. Just go. So I did have one more story lined up, but then I realized that it was an ad. And I went back and forth about whether or not I even wanted to play it, but I decided not to, because of two things. One, we want real stories. We want real, situations on this channel. I want to, give as much of real stories as I can, unless it's a satire post or a skit that brings up a good conversation. And the second part of that is I'm not getting paid to place that ad, so so I shouldn't be having it on my channel. They got paid to place that ad, not me. So thanks for anyone who's watched this so far today. I know this one was a little shorter than normal, but, I did have to cut out that one story, so it is what it is. Hopefully I'll see you guys on Friday, and bye!